I want to start today's video by asking you a question. How long ago did you decide that you wanted to stop consuming cannabis? How long ago did you make that single decision that it's time for you to quit? If you're anything like me, I struggled with substance use for 10 years of my life. And for 7 of those years, I decided that I wanted to stop. It took me 7 years to make a single decision. Now, the reason why I ask you this is because the rate at which you take action on the singular decisions that you make is going to be a large factor in the success that you do or don't experience throughout the course of your life. Speed equals success, the rate at which you can problem solve. If there's something that ought to be addressed, that something should be addressed quickly and efficiently. And I found for me that cannabis substance use dramatically slowed me down. It took away from my momentum and it took away from my speed at which I was able to resolve problems. Now, when I'm talking about success, I certainly mean success in your business, success in your career, success in your finances. But this can also relate to success in your relationships and success in your mental and your physical health. When problems arise, which they inevitably will, how quickly are you able to address and resolve those problems? And I want you to really stop and think and ask yourself, is cannabis aiding in the resolve of those issues that you're facing? Or is it delaying the outcome of those issues? When I was struggling with cannabis substance use, this is one of the worst mindsets for me that it created. Not only the degree that cannabis slowed me down, but the mindset of, oh, I'm going to quit today and then I wait till tomorrow. I'm going to quit tomorrow and then I wait till next week. I'm going to quit next week, but I guess I'll just wait until the new year. I was showing a behavior problem. The behavior was I wasn't acting with urgency. I wasn't acting with speed. I thought I had all the time in the world to make a change. And that mindset, that rot, that subconscious rot, slowly started to spill over into my executive decision making when it came to my career and my business. It started spilling over into my relationship problems. Oh, this is coming up with my wife or my girlfriend or whomever, whatever. I'm just going to brush it under the rug and we'll address it another day, right? It came up in my physical health. I had a lot of physical health problems from my substance use. My health started to decline and I was too scared. I didn't want to address any of those things. So I would just brush it under the rug and say, deal with it later on. Cannabis, for a lot of people, is going to be a drug of rumination and procrastination. And if you're not acting with speed and urgency, it's costing you financially, it's costing you time-wise, and it's costing you your mental bandwidth. The mental bandwidth that it's costing you is, well, I'm delaying however long it's taking me to solve this problem. And that's mental bandwidth that you could be using to solve other problems in your life. Business problems, relationship problems, physical health problems, whatever it may be. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some different ways that cannabis takes away from a person's speed, their momentum, and then I'm going to talk about different areas of a person's life where this may be negatively impacting them. Because in the sense that you think cannabis might be helping you, it might be taking away from your motion to a point where you've become paralyzed. And I don't want that to happen to you. Now, if you're like a lot of the clients that we work with, like this person here who successfully started quitting cannabis, or like this person here who's been working out with us, a high-level business owner who has never had this amount of mental clarity that he's had in years since stopping drinking, I want you to check out the link in the video description or the pinned comment. We have a science-backed method that has a 98% client success rate at helping people quit nicotine and cannabis in as little as 48 hours. This method is specifically for high-level professionals and high performers who want to do this privately without disrupting their public life and public image. Again, I put the link in the video description in the pinned comment. Cannabis, as I said earlier, is very much a drug of procrastination and rumination, and this is how that happens. You consume cannabis. Cannabis disrupts your sleep. You don't get deep sleep. You wake up the next day a little groggy, a little tired, not really feeling well. The work starts to pile up. You start to feel a little bit of overwhelm. And then what do? You go and you consume more cannabis because you're overwhelmed by things. Now you consume more cannabis. You're stressed about the fact that you're consuming more cannabis and the consequences of substance use. That stress builds and builds and builds. And now how do you deal with stress? You consume more cannabis because you're feeling overwhelmed and you're behind. And now this cycle continues and continues and continues. And this is problematic for a lot of people because what happens is when we go and we consume cannabis, even though it's doing nothing to help us resolve life's problems that we're facing, doing nothing to help us with the speed at which we resolve those problems, it feels like we're doing something. It feels like we're taking an action, right? I'm going to the dispensary, I'm texting whoever I'm buying it from, I'm sitting down, I'm taking the action of lighting up a blunt or hitting my bong or whatever it is. It feels like you're doing something to resolve the stress and to resolve the problems. But what you're actually doing is just creating a new set of problems for yourself, a new set of distractions for yourself, and delaying the rate at which you should actually be solving your business problems, your relationship problems, and your physical health problems. Now, to make matters even worse, what winds up happening is, if you wind up in my shoes, you wind up taking like 7 years, 10 years, 20 years to see through on the commitment of quitting cannabis. And the very act of quitting cannabis becomes its own form of procrastination, of delay. Well, I can't solve my business problems as long as I got this addiction problem. I gotta sweep the problems I'm having with my wife or with my significant other under the rug because I have this drug use, this substance use problem, cannabis, alcohol, nicotine, tobacco, whatever it may be. Now, we wind up using quitting drugs as its own form of procrastination because we've become so used to quitting drugs and that discomfort that it's become preferable to managing the other issues in our life that truly need to be addressed and that truly need to be resolved. This is the bigger picture of how cannabis delays speed. And we're putting all that bandwidth into solving the cannabis problem, and we're taking away from our mental bandwidth that could be applied to making more money, building a stronger relationship, getting our body back into physical health, whatever it may be. That's way number one. Way number two, cannabis delays speed, is it can greatly negatively impact your physical health. So if you're not sleeping, right, you're automatically putting yourself at a risk of worse physical health if you're not getting deep sleep. It's also during deep sleep where your brain does the real problem solving. It's when you sleep, it's when your brain goes through all the experiences that you have on a day-to-day basis, a week-to-week basis, or a month-to-month basis. That's when your brain is coming up with thoughts and resolutions and ideas, problem solving, when you're sleeping. And cannabis robs us of deep sleep. Now that eventually can start to damage your physical health. Now you start having physical health problems. Maybe it's with your weight, maybe it's cardiovascular, maybe it's something else like Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome, a horrible condition that can develop from cannabis consumption that can completely derail a person's momentum in life. Now, instead of solving work problems, relationship problems, other things, you're tied up in this cycle of cannabis consumption and trying to manage all the negative health outcomes. And this could be different doctor's appointments, you're making a bunch of co-pays, maybe you're like this individual that we work with who's had multiple surgeries related to CHS, who's now doing fantastic, as you can see, since working with us and fully recovering from it. Or maybe you're like this person that we worked with who had CHS, who's now fully restored their appetite and their ability to eat after successfully quitting cannabis after years of trying. I actually had CHS myself, stage 1 CHS, for a very long time. And the amount of days I had to cancel on my patients at my practice, the amount of days that I just had too much fatigue, too much drain because I wasn't sleeping to go perform at work, to go perform in my career, the amount of wasted time going back and forth from different doctor's offices to different doctor's offices, not working on the things in life that I actually valued, that I actually cared about, is horrible looking back on it. And it came with a significant cost. When you're not feeling good, when you're not well rested, when you're fatigued, when you're suffering physical health consequences, it becomes almost impossible to act with the level of speed and urgency that you need to problem solve at a rate that's going to make you successful. So now you're tied up with all these consequences of substance use. You're not acting with speed in the other areas of your life that actually matter to you. and you're just missing out more and more and more. And the most common areas that I see when I'm talking to people where speed is relevant is in your career and in your work performance, especially if you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're a high-level executive. You need to problem solve, and you need to problem solve fast. So you have to ask yourself, is cannabis taking away from your ability to problem solve? Because if it is, now that's leading to procrastination, it's leading to more overwhelm, it's resulting in higher levels of stress. And so many people I work with will say, well, I use cannabis to help me manage the stress. I use cannabis to help me manage the overwhelm. The thing that's causing the problem is never going to be the solution to the problem. And so many people have a hard time seeing this. This is what we help people with. And that's how we get people to quit in just 48 hours to 18 days. They quit fast. Once we're able to reframe things, we call it expedited perception realignment. The other issues outside of career performance where I see this is in relationships. A lot of people who have had ongoing substance use can have some relationship problems in their marriage, with their kids, whatever it may be. And what they tend to do is sweep these problems under the rug because they can't address them while they have this substance use issue. This was certainly the case for me in my relationships back then. Things would just pile up and pile up and pile up, and the drama and stuff would just continue to pile in the relationship until it would hit these massive breaking points, and there'd be these massive blowouts between me and my significant other. And I see this all the time with clients that we work with who are in relationship struggles because of substance use. They've been sweeping problems and ignoring things under the rug for years because they didn't act with urgency to resolve those problems. And it leads to significant amounts of overwhelm. Now, the other area where I see this, especially with men that we work with, I work with a lot of guys between the age of 35 and I'll say 55 years old, where they've neglected their health for years, throughout years of drinking or smoking cannabis, smoking cigarettes, vaping, whatever it may be. And they act with no imperativeness on their health. And it gets to a point where they're actually scared to go see a doctor, to go see a cardiologist. And look, I say this as someone who has a doctorate in chiropractic. I'm very into supplements. I'm very into kind of naturopathic medicine. So I'm not sitting here saying this as someone who's a fan of like big pharmacy. I'm not against it, but I'm not here to like push meds and say stop smoking cannabis. That's not my goal. But I've worked with a lot of people, just like I did, who have significantly neglected health problems, acted with no urgency on them, and those problems just compile, right? A little bit of weight gain turns into type 2 diabetes. A little bit of cardiovascular problems become major cardiovascular events because they've been neglecting it for years, not acting with speed, not acting with urgency. When you make a decision, when you identify a problem, the rate at which you resolve that problem is going to determine how successful your outcome is. And if you're watching this video, there's a really good chance that cannabis is robbing you of the speed that you need to resolve those problems. Like I said, cannabis put me in a constant state of slow motion until eventually the substance use had me paralyzed. I was scared to open work emails at one point in my life and respond to text messages. I was scared to go to meetings and big networking events. And I say this as someone who was running and continues to run a highly successful private practice as a medical professional, okay? But I was there in my substance use. And what happened? The problems kept piling up, the stress kept building. That was not good for my physical health either. And now I just was more and more delayed when it came to resolving all of these things. And again, the subconscious rot, my inability to make a singular decision to stop consuming cannabis started to spill over into every other aspect of my life that required some level of executive decision making. And it significantly slowed me down. And while I was slowed down, my competition was running laps around me. They were running circles around me in my business. They were running circles around me in my relationships, right? Because we're all trying to make some money. We're all trying to date that special person. We're all trying to do a lot of the same stuff. And if you're out here moving in slow motion, while someone else is out there moving in 2x, 5x, 10x speed, they're going to outperform you every single time. There's a lot of people right now who are stuck in this cycle, and they can't seem to find a way out. They can't seem to figure it out, just like I did for 7 years of my life when I was struggling with it. Just by the act of stopping consuming substances and starting to resolve the problems in your life that have developed, you can gain a massive edge. You can gain a massive edge in your relationships. You can gain an insane edge in your business and your career performance just by not smoking, just by not drinking, just by showing up every day with more mental clarity and more presence. You can gain a massive edge in your personal life and in your professional life. And this is one of the things that you can look forward to once you decide to actually execute on making that decision of quitting cannabis consumption. So I'm hoping that this video helps you see things a little differently, because what you think cannabis might be helping you with, it might actually be robbing you of. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, I want you to follow me right into the next one, where I'm going to give you some really simple tips when it comes to quitting cannabis that should help you along the way. I'll see you there.